Welcome to the Business Spotlight, where today the spotlight is shining on Katy Hall from SC4 Carpenters. Welcome, Katy.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Looking very much forward to finding out a little bit more about all of you and the business. So to start us off with, tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit more about you and the business, please.
So I'm owner director of SC4 Carpenters Limited with two other people, and we have we've been trading for 23 years nearly.
Wow.
And we offer basically labour only carpentry and decorating in the sort of new build housing mainly. Right. I mean, we do other projects as well, but mainly sort of new build housing.
Okay. What made you guys start a business?
My husband used to be a self-employed carpenter many years ago. Okay. And as his sort of business developed, he decided with his business partner, to set up as a company offering the services. And I had at the time been working in publishing both sort of books and website development. Wow. And had my own business and was working on big projects. And so I had a lot of experience basically running a business, understanding the legislation and the paperwork. Yeah. So that's what I had to offer. And then as the business grew, basically that part of my business sort of dwindled a bit more, and I came over and worked more for SC4. So I've been working sort of full-time for SC4 for about 10 years.
Okay.
Maybe a bit more than that, yeah.
So is starting a business something that both you and your husband had always wanted to do?
I think it was always in my husband's sort of head that was eventually what he'd do. And I just always worked. I'd worked for small companies and then worked in the family business. And so kind of it was in my blood to kind of have my own business and work for myself, whether sort of self-employed or sole trader or a sort of limited company.
Okay. What do you guys do really well? What's the business really good at?
I think, well, when we set it up, what we really wanted to do was to make sure that our subcontractors were treated how we'd wanted to be treated on site. Okay. And we're very sort of people-led, service-led. We try and give a high quality sort of no mistakes, problem solving kind of service, so that we're making life easier for our clients. Yeah. So,
and because you're in an industry that, and I love working with trades, because they inevitably have quite a bad reputation across.
Yeah, I mean, they're historically. Yeah.
Yes. So for you to do something a little bit different, now, how does that come across? Like when you talk to prospective new clients, how do you have those conversations to show that you are different than maybe anybody else out?
So we have a lot of procedures. Our staff are technically very good, so they have a lot of technical knowledge. And those things come across in our meetings. So we might we make sure we bring those things up in our meetings, that we understand health and safety, because safety is a massive issue. You know, it's a very dangerous industry to work in. Sites are not safe places. It's really important that you understand that. We would talk about examples of where we'd helped clients solve problems, or where there were design changes and how we got around them. We talk about sort of the materials that we use, and that we make sure we work to sort of the NHBC standards or best practice. So sort of above and beyond the bare minimum. And also the fact that we give a lump sum, and we try and minimize sort of day works, which is kind of all those extra bits which are over on top, extra overs, they call them, and we try, and variations. We try to minimize that so that our client knows up front what it's going to cost them.
Nice. Love that one. Now, obviously, you've been in business for quite some time.
Yes.
So I can imagine that over the years, you've had quite a few challenges and obstacles to work through. Talk me through some of the ones that spring to mind. Maybe
yeah, I mean, there are the not very nice ones. It's quite common in this industry, and particularly in the current climate, for clients to go under. And so there's always financial issues.
Yeah.
Mainly we get around it by trying to leave money in the business to manage our cash flow. Cash is always an issue because we pay our subcontractors, if they're working for us, we pay them fortnightly. Quite often we're not paid for 6 to 8 weeks by our clients. So there's always those upfront cash flow issues. And once the project gets going, it's not too bad, and our projects tend to last sort of from six months to 5 years.
Wow.
And so issues we've had sort of coming out of COVID have been that a lot of projects ended, and then a lot were delayed, and then they started again, which meant that we had to make considerations about, were we going to keep managers in place, or were we going to try and sort of lay them off and get new ones? And obviously you don't want to lose good staff and good managers, so you have to sort of make those considerations. And there's skill shortage at the moment, so we have issues where competitors might come on site and offer our workforce ridiculous amounts of money to move over to them. And so what's really important is to have really good relationships with our staff and with our subcontractors, with our workforce, because we have a flexible workforce, because projects it isn't like you're producing X units every week and they're identical. It's not like manufacturing where you've probably got some sort of idea of how many staff you need, what your costs are going to be, because you're at the whim, if you like, of not necessarily even the principal contractor, but the developer themselves or their client, on what houses they can sell and these sort of things. And you have to be very flexible. You have to have a flexible workforce. You have to be able to say, okay, we've got this project where this week we need lots of people, maybe next week we need them somewhere else, and so which is why we use subcontractors a lot, because you know, that's kind of a big issue. But there's also a lot of issues related to using subcontractors in terms of contracts, and making sure that we really understand what the legislation is, but also that our subcontractors really understand what their responsibilities are, what it means to be self-employed rather than being employed. And it is complex, and having that knowledge and understanding is very, very, very important.
So where do you, I guess, where do you get your information from? Like, especially when you're, new in business, or as you in a growing business, how do you know what trusted sources to use?
So I find that the .gov or HMRC websites are very helpful, particularly on the employment information. And there's various tools and sort of calculators that are on there that enable you to sort of, for instance, work out whether your workforce is employed, is self-employed, is a worker. So there's this in-between category as well. And we have legal advice on contracts, but what they always say to us is the contract is all very well, that's important, but it's actually what you do that is more important. So you could have a contract that says, for instance, with self-employed people, they have to have the choice of whether they choose to do the work and have contracted and have agreed a price or not. But you might find that some some companies like ours might say, well, today, whether you like it or not, you're going to go to this site and we're going to pay you this. And you're going to do that because you have a contract with us.
Right.
But that's not true. Or they might say, actually, the subcontractor might say to us, I can't come in today, but I've got a friend, he's as qualified as me, or I've got a business partner who's qualified as me. I'm sending him instead. And legally, as a self-employed person, they're entitled to do that.
Okay.
So unless there is, for instance, if they're not qualified to do the work, obviously you can say, no, they have to be qualified. But actually, you know, self-employed people have these rights. As a employer or as a contractor, you have to understand that. But it works both ways, because also the self-employed person, if they make a mistake, they're responsible for fixing it at their own cost. So, but all this information is very readily available, but you have to be out there and looking for it and be prepared. I was
going to say, it's knowing where to look, and then obviously making sure that you're up to date all the time, which is I can imagine an ongoing scenario for you. So talk me through some of the wins. What have been some of your biggest wins that you've had?
We've got a fantastic project at the moment. It's for 406 units, so 406 homes, new homes, a 5-year project, and where we're actually providing materials on site. And this was a big step for us to be happy and confident that we could take that on, because a 5-year project with price rises and massive increases in material costs and increases in staff costs, and just sort of the logistics of managing that, was we had to be confident that we could do that. And we did a lot of research, and we also actually made sure that we got a business loan in place before we started, because we could anticipate that there would be cash flow issues. And so to have those monies in place, even if we weren't going to need them, was much more important than kind of getting down the line and thinking, oh no, we haven't got any money. What do we do? And that sort of forward planning and making sure that we had the staff to do it of the right caliber, what the workforce to do it of the right caliber, and that we had the management in place and the infrastructure, and all that forward planning was really necessary. And we needed to do that before we were tendering. Because you know, you have to price for it based on what your requirements are. And so, and that can be a dialogue with the client and saying, you know, how is this going to work, and not being afraid to kind of look stupid sometimes by asking maybe what might be an obvious question, but you know, you can phrase it as, my understanding is this kind of thing. You know, is this right? Or, you know, is that, you know, so but it's really, I'd say, really important to do that, to get the good wins. And I think there's other things where we've moved into sort of different markets. So we started just as carpentry, and then we expanded and started doing timber frame installations. So that's where you build the structure of a home out of timber rather than masonry. And so installing that. And when we first started, we worked quite closely with the company about building a relationship with them and helping them with design, getting over design issues and problems, and even things such as how the timber frame is stacked on the lorry, so that when it comes to site, it can be offloaded in the most efficient way, and things like that, that maybe another company would just have said, well, it comes as it comes, and that's not how we do it. We try and have those dialogues, and when we do and they work, and we have a client who's really happy with us, and because they've made profits, you know, that's good. We've had other things with the timber frame where we've actually gone to a client and said, actually, for that timber frame, have you considered using this supplier? Because they're really good, we work really well with them. and you know, those sort of relationships where that sort of added value, I think. And sort of understanding where you can add value to your business.
Nice.
And putting in that extra effort. And it might not pay off the first time. It might only pay off 1 out of 10 times. But over time, I think the added value to your reputation is really important.
Absolutely. So looking back on the last 20 years, 20 plus years that you've been in business, what have been some of your key learnings as a person or as a business? Like what really stands out for you?
I think something that I've really only seen in the last sort of 5 or 6 years on a personal basis is that for a long time, I didn't realize I worked in construction. And that sounds crazy. But I think because of how roles are seen, I thought that our workforce worked in construction. They're on site, they're working and they're doing things. But despite all the knowledge I have and sort of expertise really about the industry, in my head, because I was sat in an office in front of the computer most of the time, I didn't think I am a role model for this industry. I didn't think I'm working in this industry. And it's actually, but alongside that, on the flip side of that, I had quite a lot of imposter syndrome. Like I couldn't talk about it because I wasn't on site and I wasn't doing these things. And so part of getting over that was to actually go on site and be involved, but also just to have the confidence to say that, I do know what I'm talking about. And I think it has helped that attitudes to women in the industry have changed phenomenally sort of recently. I mean, in the last 5 to 6 years. It's really, really changed that the big companies are actively engaging women, trying to get women into the industry, and suddenly you realize, well, I know that, I'm doing that. Oh yeah, actually I am working in this industry. And I think that for me personally, that's been kind of a major thing. And I think quite often when you have a small business, you're doing everything and you don't realize, because you haven't gone through some formal fast track kind of thing in a big company or whatever, you haven't worked in every department in a massive company, you kind of think you don't know what you're talking about. But actually, when you work in a small company, because you do everything, you understand how finance interplays with sales, with marketing, with operations, with strategy. And suddenly it sort of hits you, oh, actually I have a massive understanding of how business works that perhaps I wouldn't have if I was just working in the finance department of a massive company.
Totally.
So I think,
would you say that took you before you realized that you understood so many aspects of the business and how they think?
Quite a long time. And
I'm glad you said that, because I kind of wanted to ask for that reason, because I get so many clients that exactly do that. They go, I don't understand this and I'm not very good at that. And actually you have to learn as a small
you do. And I think because I was working part-time in this business to start with and part-time in my other business, sometimes that can make you feel a bit like you've got all these balls in the air and you're not kind of, you're not, don't feel like you have the understanding. And then but if you actually break it down, you realize actually to be able to do that, you must have a great amount of skill and knowledge. Actually, I think that comes with age and experience. It comes with, I think it does come with acceptance as well, because a few years ago, if I spoke to a man on site, I would get patronized and I would be told you don't know what you're talking about either,
Yeah.
because you're not on site, or the implication because
Yeah.
you're a woman, and you know, they'd call me love and things, and you knew that was what they were thinking, even if they didn't come out and say it straight. And I think that change in attitudes of other people has massively influenced my confidence about what I'm capable of and what can do, and also what other people are saying. You know, other women are out there talking about it, and that's where role models are so important.
So important. I'll circle back around to those roles.
Yeah.
I'm not forgetting. As a business owner, what still keeps you awake at night?
Usually money, I have to say. Money and legislation and regulations, and making sure, but if you ask my business partner, he's responsible for health and safety, so he'd say, well, it's health and safety. Are we being safe on site? Are we doing this? If I talk to my operations director, it would probably be, okay, how do I get that person on that site? Okay, they want this, how am I gonna balance all those those balls? So I think it does relate to the role that you're doing, but yeah,
absolutely. Now when you kind of look back, when you first started the business and then joined the business, have you achieved everything that you set out to achieve? Are you
I think so, and more. Although we always had this idea that we were going to do development ourselves, which we haven't done. One of the reasons, I think, is we all had young families, and it was always doing something that felt risky. Was always that, you know, was always kind of, okay, it's not just going to affect me, it's we maybe have to put our house up or whatever. And I think so we're quite risk averse. We tend to plan in advance. We don't take on massive debt. We do think about the projects we take. We also think about the clients we work for, because particularly in construction, there are clients who kind of have agreed a price, and you get to the end and suddenly what you're being paid is you've lost your profit, basically. You know? And so it's like, well, yeah, I've done all this work, but I've actually, okay, it's paid wages, but actually haven't made anything. And sometimes you're making losses, and usually it's because, not because you've not planned it out right, but because the client has kind of something that they've told you that they're going to pay you for, they aren't going to pay you for. So as time goes on, you get a bit less trusting, and you make sure everything's in writing. But even then, in construction, even if something's in writing, they'll say, well, it didn't take me that long, or we had many years ago, we had a client where they agreed a lump sum price, and then they counted every hour we were on site, and came back to us and said, oh, well, we're only going to pay you your day work rate for the hours that were on site rather than a lump sum price. But the problem is that because of how the industry works, our day work rate covers our costs, just about. The lump sum price covers all our overheads and our marketing, and so the day works is meant to be like a little bit of an add-on, not the so if you get a client who's like that, then you have to have this fight, and then it's like, well, I'm not going to be working for that client again, or they're going to be, I'm not going to have you. It takes time to recognize what a good client looks like. And if I could put trust mark on clients, then, you know, that would be helpful.
It's a little bit like you would get check a trade reviews or trust.
Exactly. It'd be check a client review.
No, there might be a business idea in that case.
Yeah, exactly.
So looking forward, where's your industry going? What are you expecting? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you expecting?
Generally, I think there's a trend towards modular and offsite building, which you've seen. Whether it's as fast as people would like to think, I don't know. I think there's always going to be a desire or a market for the sort of even traditional builds. So I mentioned timber frame before, but timber frame's great when you want to build quickly, but actually if the housing market's not that quick, maybe actually masonry is a better choice. So there's it's sort of horses for courses, and the construction industry is very, very sensitive to economics. It tends to be, if there's a recession, it's the first one to be affected and the last industry to recover. It's very, very sensitive to sort of very small changes, increases in materials, energy costs, staff costs, all these kind of things. So I can see, the industry is kind of, it's not quite sure at the moment whether it's collapsing or it's expanding. So we're in that bit of flux. So all the uncertainty that everyone's feeling at the moment is kind of magnified.
So no, go ahead.
So I was going to say, in terms of longer term, I think that the industry is definitely moving towards, instead of being the sort of straight white men working in it, it's definitely becoming more diverse, and that gives it access to more than twice as many people. And with an industry with a skills shortage, it's kind of the obvious solution. But I think that's a slow progress.
Where's that skills shortage? How's it? Sounds like potentially the golden egg kind of question here. What's the solution to this?
It is diversifying the workforce, and it needs to come from big business, but it also needs to come from everybody. Everybody has to kind of change their attitude, including the women. I mean, I never even considered, even though I did sort of STEM subjects at school, I never considered construction as a career, because to me, construction was, being on site, laying bricks or hammering nails. It never occurred to me that there were all these massive number of roles that suited virtually every skill set. And I think that education is massive. And I still sort of talk to people at school, and they're not told about careers in construction at all. And yet there's this massive skills shortage. So,
Well, where does that education piece start? Like, because if we're talking careers day, let's say, then we're already at the end of someone who's not got the right skills. So where do we start this?
I think it starts at home, even preschool.
Oh wow.
It starts kind of with, encouraging all your children, whatever gender they are, to be playing with construction toys, Lego and bricks and vehicles and cogs and engineering type things, and playing engineering games and all these kind of maths and things, and not thinking, oh well, maths is for boys or engineering's for boys. But also on the flip side, we want more men in nursing, we want more men in caring roles. So it is this kind of, and it's definitely moving that way. I think that, the children now as parents will be less prone to sort of saying, oh, well, my daughters will play with dolls and my sons will play with cars. But it is as young as that. And then through school again, and you do see it more in schools, or you see less gender divide in schools now. I mean, when I was at school again, at secondary school, girls didn't do woodwork and metalwork. They did the cooking and the sewing, and the boys did the woodwork and metalwork. So it's well, how are you ever gonna make it easy for women to come into construction, or for men to go into fashion or creative arts or any of these things, if you're making these kind of divides so early on?
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? One of the interviews I did before this is with a lovely young lady who's still a full-time teacher, but she equally runs a tutoring business on the side of that, and it's absolutely huge. And we had, as you can imagine, a huge conversation around this.
Yeah.
How even, and it's almost like a step back from what you're saying, but how even now kids at school aren't taught that they could be business owners. It's still that same old go and have a career.
Yeah.
They have no skills. Or the right kind of skills to
exactly. And I also had a conversation recently with someone who's doing responsible for careers and T-levels at college, and that I was saying, well, what we find is actually that even the people, the apprentices or whoever are doing their carpentry courses, don't understand what it means to be self-employed. They don't know what their responsibilities are. They don't know how to write an invoice. Yes, and they don't even know that, you know, you have to have your address on it, you have to mention VAT, you have to put the address of the person you're invoicing, the date, a unique number. You know, they just don't know this information. And that's the basics, let alone the accounting, bookkeeping, understanding. For instance, in construction, you're going to have 20% of everything you paid will be paid direct to the government.
Correct.
It's not going to come into your pocket.
No.
All these sort of things that people don't understand.
Which you then
they
learn
should
on the job,
they
right?
should be learning before they make the decision.
They should, but I guess that's what we've learned on the job equally, because
exactly
we've come from. This comes back time and time again when I ask the question, what do you think we should teach in schools right now to help kids get ready for business ownership? I often get that whole financial common sense knowledge, even as simple as how does a mortgage really work? Because maths is something totally different than understanding the financial world, and they're right.
And I think everyone remembers the shock when they get their first paycheck and realize that it's kind of a lot less money than they thought they were getting. They never tell you that in school. I don't, maybe they do now, but they certainly didn't with me.
Apparently they don't. From what I'm hearing.
And then, you know, then you've got complications of VAT and, you know, there's so many different things and different rules in different industries. And these are the sort of things that catch people out.
Yes.
And that's why they get into financial difficulties, because they've spent their paycheck before it's come, and, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier you alluded to role models. Who is or are your role model? Who do you look up to? Who inspires you?
There are a lot of women on social media who are talking about what they're doing, about how things affect them, whether it's, and they're very honest. They're honest about how hard some things are, what it's like, but they're also positive as well. So it's those things, being realistic, but also sort of being positive about change and good things that happen. But there are a lot who are standing up and saying, you know, I'm working in, for instance, in construction, or I'm neurodiverse, and these are the real positives for me to be. And, you know, I count myself in that. Again, it's one of those things that sort of you don't realize because it wasn't something that was spoken about for women. So as a neurodivergent woman, it's kind of I didn't even know that was a thing, kind of thing. And so that's really important. So people are talking about autism and ADHD, dyslexia, and for instance, in our industry, it's actually a large number of the carpenters who work for us are dyslexic, because actually the positives that come along with having that sort of different brain activity are great, sort of spatial awareness, and even empathy is a big thing. And if you're creating a product, a home that someone's going to live in, actually having empathy is important. You understand that actually it matters to people if you do a good job. Attention to detail, focus, all these things, energy that maybe comes with ADHD, but also the the thing of not wanting to sit in an office. You enjoy working outside or working with your hands and things like this, and actually talking about the positives of those things, as well as the
perceived challenges.
The challenges, the challenges that come along with it. And also so I think I see sort of role models, both men and women, who are talking about honestly about what it's like to be working on site, to not fit in with the typical sort of neurotypical patterns of thinking, or what you do, or how you speak, or these sort of things. And I think
I love that you brought that up, because I like, in my experience, I get so many clients or prospects that I speak to, they say to me, oh, I'm dyslexic, I can't do XYZ, or I've got ADHD, therefore. And they're often used as an excuse straight away. And I'm very much in that, actually, no, that's A, that's a great advantage, and B, loads of business owners are. So you're not by yourself, and let's turn that into, great, what's a slightly different way of working that makes more sense to you than what you think traditionally needs to happen. But it can't be an excuse. We've got to celebrate that it's out.
Definitely. Definitely. I think you have to recognize the challenges.
Yeah, of course.
And definitely talk about them. You know, I talk quite a lot on some of my blogs about masking, because masking is exhausting. And a lot of women particularly do it. So if you come out of a meeting and you're completely exhausted, it may well be that you've been masking throughout that meeting. And so it's really important to recognize that, and actually not to judge people. Maybe that person's doing something that you think slightly odd, you know, or maybe they're not making eye contact in the way that you think they should be, or maybe they're mimicking what you're saying a bit more than you think, and actually think, well, actually maybe this is a challenging you know, situation for them, rather than saying, well, I'm not going to work with them because they've come across as not how I expected them to.
It's about awareness, isn't it? It's about being aware that other people may act and be slightly different, and therefore what does that mean, and what can you pick up, and how can you change?
Exactly.
Yes. So
and we make all sorts of judgments that, you know, that perhaps we shouldn't, and we should be giving people more benefit of the doubt.
Correct. I would agree with that. Talk me through something that you still want to achieve. What's still on your plan, on your wish list, on your vision board? Tell me something that you still want.
I think I still, well, from a company point of view, I'd love to get a female apprentice working for us. That would be amazing. And it's not that we're not open, it's just that all the issues I spoke about, women aren't coming into the industry. So I'd love that. Personally, I think, I'd like to kind of be a bit more relaxed about the business, having been through COVID and recessions and things like that. And it would be nice to have a bit of a even keel, which we can see. We've got lots of work coming in, and all those things are positive. But also I'm kind of moving to retirement age and thinking about, how do you know, what's that transition? How do you end of life of a business, and sort of trying to think about that as well, and you know what I want to do. And when you've been really wrapped up in a business and it's really important to you, how you step back from it and how you let go, and all those things, which is probably the subject of a whole other conversation.
I was just going to say, have you got an exit strategy mapped out already?
We do, but it's kind of very flexible at the moment, just because it's such uncertain times. It's difficult to say, yes, we've got this X, Y, and Z. But what we've been trying to do is to bring in management and procedures, and make the whole thing much more procedure based, so that I could be knocked over by a bus tomorrow, you know, and the business will continue.
Please don't do that. That's always a good starting point. I often say this to clients: the more you're still in the business, the less it's worth.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so we need to get you out.
Yeah. But that can be difficult valuable. when it's kind of, sometimes it's difficult and you sit there and think, actually, do I have anything to do today? You know, I mean, you always do, because there's always this list, but so that can be really hard, especially when you've been very, very focused and involved in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally get that. If you had the opportunity to go back and speak to 18-year-old Katy, what would you tell her?
Oh, I think actually, on the one side, I think I like to say, there's loads of opportunities, and that, I mean, for instance, I talked about that I did maths and science at A levels. I didn't want to go and study those things at university, so I actually went and was a secretary, because I was kind of told by my careers advisor, well, with your qualifications, sort of insurance, bank, you know, secretarial. And I thought, well, if I'm a secretary, at least that kind of gives me a skill set, an admin skill set, and then I can kind of decide what I want to do. Well, if I say I'm working in the bank, I kind of felt like, well, that's set, if you see what I mean. I think I want to say there's thousands, literally thousands of different roles you could do, and actually don't think that you need to go to university. Think actually that there's, like, now there's the T levels, there's apprenticeships. I definitely appointed myself in the direction of a apprenticeship in construction, or something like that, you know, and thought about I could have been a QS, or, you know, an architect, a designer, all those things which I didn't even know that those roles existed. So yeah, I think that's what I'd say, that there's so many opportunities out there, and you can do whatever you want. I also think if you're passionate about something, you will learn how to do it. And on the flip side, you will fall into the job that suits you. That just follow what you enjoy doing, take up the opportunities you're offered. If there's something you're good at, keep doing it, and you will end up where you're meant to be, because, you know, if you keep an open mind about things, rather than sort of starting your career thinking, oh, I want to be X and this is the route I have to take to it. Even if along the way you find things that you actually don't like about it, but you've got in your head that that's what you want to be. So I think, being really open and sort of being kind of a bit more relaxed about it, and a bit sort of go with the flow and end up where you're meant to be, rather than, and what makes you happy, rather than kind of a preset destination.
I love
Enjoy the journey, I guess.
Enjoy the journey. It's going to take you someplace great, regardless.
Exactly.
I always end these interviews with 3 questions that are the same for everyone. So the first one is for anybody that's watching this, that's just starting a business or about to start a business. What would your 2 top tips be? Research about your business. Find out what the rules are. Maybe talk to someone else who's already in the business. You can find people on LinkedIn, and most people want to be helpful. You know, it's not like you're their competitor or whatever, that they want to be helpful. So ask them, you know, what legislation affects this industry? What should I need to know? Whatever it is, because you don't want that surprise when you find that, you know, 20% of your income that you thought was coming into your bank isn't, or that you should have registered for VAT, or, you know, you should have done your PAYE return and now you've got a fine for not doing it. You know, do your research. Sorry, I've forgotten the next question. No, that's a what else? I'm not sure. So do your research. Look at the, do your research. Be aware of what has to happen. Actually, I quite like that. That's a good one. So that's a meaty top tip. So we'll leave it at that. How has having a business compared to what you thought it was going to be?
I think it's been more challenging, but also more fun.
Oh, interesting.
more rewarding than I realized it would be.
Yeah. More fun, but still challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last question, knowing what you know now, would you start a business again?
I think I would, because I like working for myself and being sort of self-determining, and I get satisfaction from helping other people and all those sort of things. But some days I think, oh my God, some days it's difficult, you know. So I think I would, just because I can't envisage myself as being a little cog in a big machine, I guess.
I love that. On that note, thank you so much, Katy, for your time and for your thoughts. And I absolutely loved some of your nuggets in that. I think it's fantastic interview. So thank you so much for being here today. The link with Katy's details are in the comment section below, so please connect up with her. Thank you very much for watching this Business Spotlight. Until next time.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.